Well, the stakes are high for both candidates going into tonight's debate, the last one before Americans hit the polls in just 2 weeks. A new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll of likely voters shows that President Barack Obama and his Republican challenger, Governor Mitt Romney, are tied at 47%. It's so close. Well, with me now is Paul Brathwaite. He's a principal at the political consultancy Podesta Group, as well as Matt Dowd joining me. He's our Bloomberg's own political analyst. Paul, let me start with you, because this is such a tight race that is why everybody is looking at the debate tonight. Traditionally, foreign policy debates don't really seal an election, but what do you expect tonight?
Well, I think what you're going to hear tonight is a discussion about how the United States positions itself both economically as a world leader and using our foreign policy to help that economic policy. I think the president is probably on strong footing here, given that he is the incumbent and has been on the job for 4 years.
Yeah.
So he goes in with a slight advantage.
However, and when you dig deeper and deeper into this poll that that NBC and the Journal did, it was interesting because what they found was that President Obama is losing more and more his base in white voters. What do you say to that?
Well, you know, I think these polls have been all over the place. In one poll, you see that number, you know, in double digits. Others, you see it small. I think this election is really going to come down to who do you trust and who do you think is going to do a better job and has a vision for the next 4 years. I think the president believes that his vision of a strong economy at home and strong leadership abroad is one that people will embrace, and we will see whether or not in just 2 short weeks whether or not that comes to pass.
Well, Matt, Romney's big problem has been trying to woo the women voters and also the Hispanics. So how do you try to do that in a foreign policy debate?
Well, I think the foreign policy debate really is a context for something bigger, actually. And I actually think foreign policy debates have actually changed elections. The Gerald Ford debate in 1976, when he basically said in the course of that debate, Poland wasn't under the domination of Russia or the Soviet Union in the midst of that. They're about who commands the stage. This is really the commander-in-chief moment, and it's the sort of who's the strong and decisive leader. And when demonstrating that, it's really about a broad array. They may be talking about Libya or they may be talking about Iran, but it really is who do they have a trust and faith that's sitting in that chair in the Oval Office to be commander-in-chief. And that's what I think the president has to do. He has to continue on what he did in the last debate and come and show up. He can't show up like he did in Denver without a lot of energy and without a lot of strength. He's got to be there.
He's learned that lesson.
Yeah, but I think I would guess the antagonism from the last debate that we saw going back and forth is going to be lessened. They're going to be seated at a table together right next to each other.
Right.
But it really is
easier to control from a moderator's perspective.
It's much easier from a moderator's perspective, but it's also harder to attack somebody when you're sitting an arm's length away from them. But it really is who comes across as the strongest
Biden
leader.
didn't seem to have a problem with that, though.
Well, Biden, he got made fun of, but I think Biden actually did it in a way that was where he smiled and all that. He didn't do the finger pointing and hand gestures. But I think it's really about strength.
Paul, would you agree?
Yes, I certainly would agree on that. I mean, I think Bob Schieffer will have his hands full tonight, but it's going to be on the moderator to try to keep these 2 gentlemen on task and sort of give the American people an opportunity to hear specifically what they would do and answer the questions on the 6 topics that they will go through on Israel and Iran, on the Middle East, and on all the issues that have been laid out.
Well, Romney has some ground to make up on the foreign policy side. Paul, just quickly, where does he have to make that ground up? Because he hasn't done well overseas.
Well, you know, I think on his travels over the summer and then last debate when he sort of stepped on it and tried to catch the president in a gotcha moment, I think he can't make any mistakes tonight, and I think he has to show that he has a good grasp of what is going on around the world. You know, look, these are dangerous times, and the president over the last 4 years has sort of moved us from out of Iraq to going out of Afghanistan to a number of different areas on where he said he would do what he said he did. And so, you know, he's at a point where the governor, I think, has to show that he has some sort of different view than the president that will strike a chord with the American people.
Paul, Matt, just hang on for one moment. I know, but I want to just get your reaction to this and lighten this up a little bit, because over the weekend, Saturday Night Live had its own fun with the last debate with Candy Crawley. I want you to both just to listen to this.
Gas prices are a little high, if you ask me, so how come you don't do nothing about that? All right, thank you. All right.
Well, Eugene, obviously we need to do everything we can to become energy independent.
Oh, really? Then why have you cut drilling permits on federal land by half?
That's not true.
Well, so how much did you cut?
Not true.
You didn't cut anything? You're not going to cut anything?
I'm about to cut you.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
That whole skit just had me rolling on the floor. But this is, I mean, all that rings true, obviously, about what happened in the last debate. And you say it's going to be a lot less tense than that.
Well, I think it should be less tense than that. I hope they actually have some humor moments tonight, and people would actually, it would be good for the country if they had a few humor moments tonight. I think the president has a real, duty tonight to show that he is not a passive person as far as the world. He is an active, strong person in the world. I think some of his criticism has been that his success has been passive and more active. The Democrats debate that, but I think that's what really he has to arrive. And you're right, Mitt Romney has to show, and I agree with what Paul said, he cannot make a mistake. If he makes a mistake in a race that's dead even, and keep in mind, there's very few presidential races we've had with 2 weeks left that have been dead even. In the history of this country, there is very few. They're usually, we get a signal.
Well, Kerry Bush?
Well, Kerry Bush was, but there was always a sort of lean in Bush's favor in that course of that election, and it was a national security election. But we have very few elections where they go dead even in 2 weeks out.
So interesting. All right, Paul Brathwaite, thank you so much for joining me, and also to Matt Dowd. And coming up,